Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Caring Nurse. I'm here right now today with a friend of mine, Cherie, who's going to be sitting here with us today, just sharing about her experience as a friend of someone's whose parent was in a facility. So let Cherie go ahead and introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sheree Bryant Davidson. Glad to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Cherie, for taking the time out just to share with the viewers, some of your experiences that you've seen or that was shared with you through that friend of yours who had a family member in a facility. And what I understand, it was a parent of theirs who went into a long-term care facility. Could you share
Yes.
with us just how they got to that point and what led them to the long-term care facility?
Well, yeah, the person who, like you said, was the parent of the person, they used to care for the person and for their parent in their home. And so the
Oh,
care got too great. Because, nobody wants their parents to be in a nursing home because of the lack of care I couldn't say lack of care or the quality of care is not as great as you would give to your
okay.
own parent. Nobody can take
So
care of yours better than you can take care of yours. Basically,
exactly.
what
So,
I'm saying.
it was
And
some
so it got
concern there. It was some
right. So it
concern
got to the
about
point where
placement.
the care was too great for their skill level, and so they had to uh, put the parent into the nursing home. And so that's how they got to that point.
Okay, so they were
Yeah,
living at home and they were
living at home.
caring for their mother at the house, their parent at the house.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so the care was becoming more needy, more needs, more time spent. And I understand that the child or the parent was still a working person, still out in the
Still
community.
working and also had some outside care coming in, and still it was still too great that the level of care needed to be administered, I guess, on a more a higher professional level.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
than
We
it would be
understand
in the
that.
home. If I'm explaining that right, I'm not sure.
No, we understand that the care became more than what can be done at the home and so forth. So there they probably need 24-hour care. They need somebody
Right,
to oversee
exactly. And
them
then being out
24
of
hours.
the home, being working and other activities out of the home, you can't be in the home caring for the person and also working a full-time job. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Okay. So they came
yes.
to the conclusion that long-term placement was something that was needed. So they, I guess the family got together and did a search or, got together, had some conversations in reference to
Right,
making a decision. Well, I understand there were
right.
other siblings or other
Other
people involved
siblings,
in
right,
it.
right. Yep,
So they came
that's
to the
correct.
conclusion. Okay. So they find themselves in a facility. Tell me, if you could explain to us all what were some of the things that initially going into a facility they were really concerned about?
Well, the professionalism of the staff, the cleanliness of the facility, the location of the facility, because the person wanted to make sure that they could get to that person immediately. So they wanted to, location, like I say, was a factor. Um, and just, the history of care, talking with others who had members or family members in that facility to say, how was your care? How was the level of care? How did they treat the patient? How did they care for the patient? How did they communicate with other family members? So you want to look at all of those things before placing someone, your loved one in
Okay, so
that facility.
yeah,
So those were some considerations. And they select the best. I'm not going to say the name of the facility, but it was one of the best caring facility,
okay.
and
So they
so
so
that's
they
why
got
they
they,
chose
so
it.
they got they had a list of questions, a list of concerns. They went on and researched and got some answers. Even
Right.
talking to other um, family members or other people who have been in that particular facility, and so they were
Mhm.
happy with the choice they made, um,
Mhm.
placing their relative in this facility. So
Right.
as they went on, and the person is there now providing care. How did they feel about the communication from the facility?
Oh, the communication was great. The
Good.
communication was great. Um, like I said, they didn't have any real issues, but you still have to stay on top of the the nursing staff. If there was a concern, you still had to make sure that that concern was being met, because there were times when, um, without getting into too much detail, there was sometimes where the family member would come in and find something that wasn't supposed to be there.
Mhm.
Let's say if if the patient was supposed to be sitting up in an upright, the family member will come there and find the patient flat on their back or something.
Okay.
So those, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those things are part of what we would call the care plan. So those things are
Okay.
expectations that the families, they would have discussed that we will provide this, we're going to do this, this, and the other. So the
Right.
family would have that expectation that those things are being done, whether they are there or not there.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And that's the exact word. Expectations. Sometimes those expectations were not met.
Okay, so at
So
times they were falling short of those expectations. And
yeah.
so, how did the family communicate that to the nursing staff or supervisors so that we
Yeah,
can
I
get back on
mean,
track or
it
stay on
it
track?
was no problem. It was no problem because the communication was great. They didn't have any issues where when they communicated with that a particular staff, that they weren't being heard.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, okay, we're saying this, but you're not listening. So I guess they just had to nudge them just a little bit more, you know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
And
things might
the
fall
thing
through the
is
cracks.
that even the best of facilities, you just can't put your loved one there and think that, oh, they're going to get excellent care. They're going to get excellent care, but you still have to nudge them a little bit. And it's like the record being scratched, back in the day when when records when we
Yeah,
used to have
but
records.
we realize that good facilities welcome family interaction. They welcome conversations. They welcome
Hmm.
if something appears to have fallen short. They want to
Right.
make
They
corrections.
address it right away. Right.
They want to
Exactly.
address it. Yeah.
Yep.
So a facility that is open to that is going to be a good thing to look for. If you go to a facility and they are resistant to
Right.
your concern, or
Right.
they have a problem with it, or they give you a face, or they give you a kind of a little bit of pushback. That's a concern. That's a
Right.
concern because that means that they don't have the how would I say it? They don't have the desire to truly meet the need.
Right.
When you truly want to meet a need, then you are happy to, oh, you're absolutely right. Let me take care of that
Mhm.
now. Let me see
Mhm.
what I can do about that. Let me let
Mhm.
somebody know. We'll get back to you. So you expect that kind of interaction, and that's a very good
Right.
positive interaction. So I'm
Right.
very pleased and very happy to hear that that was an
Right.
experience
It
that
was very, yeah, it was a great experience,
that's good.
because like I say, when you have to put your loved one in a facility, you have a lot of anxieties
Yeah.
as whether your loved one is going to be properly taken care of. Even though the staff would assure says, oh, everything is going to be okay. In the back of your mind, I don't know. Is it really, so you just don't want to just leave them there. You still have to, follow
Yeah.
up and like you say, make sure that they're following through as you would put it with the care plan.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, let me read this to you. I just want to read this to you in the audience. The disease might hide the person underneath there, but still there's a person who needs love and attention.
Hmm.
It may seem like, they're there, they may not be very responsive, but love is always needed. Attention is always
Right.
needed. It's not something that's ever not needed. We as
Right.
humans will need that our entire lives, starting from birth until we transition to a different place.
Hmm.
So as your loved one, as your friend's loved one was in the facility, are they still in the facility now or
No, no,
transition?
they're not.
Okay. All right.
No, they're, yeah,
Okay.
the
So they're not
transition.
there. Are you saying that they have transitioned and they're deceased now?
Yeah, they had transition, but they remained there until they transitioned.
Okay. So
So
there was a
it's
hospice experience.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it turned into a hospice.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hospice
Yeah,
experience. And so how
yeah.
did you I think, most facilities work with an outside hospice. They kind of bring them into the facility, and the facility staff and the hospice staff kind of work together to keep the person comfortable as they transition through that
Mhm.
journey. How did
Mhm.
your friend feel about that participation with everybody in the communication they might have gotten from the facility and the hospice?
Well, I think they were okay with that, but there were other siblings that were involved that was more closely to the hospice
Okay.
situation, and that person was in communication with the other sibling, and then the other sibling would, communicate. They would communicate with each other. But as far as my friend, they didn't have any direct communication with, I guess, that set up
The
responsible
nurse,
for setting
yeah.
up the hospices, if that's the right terminology. But they were kept abreast of what was going on through family members,
Okay. So
through
what
other
does
family
what
members.
yeah. So a lot of facilities will ask if there is multiple family members and or multiple children or siblings that are have great concern in reference to what is happening with the person inside the facility. A facility may ask for one person to be a point of contact.
Right. And
And
that's
they
what they did. Yep.
Mhm.
That's what
And
they
that's a
did.
great thing. It keeps down a lot of confusion, and it's helpful to the staff and it's helpful to the family members that you have this one person as a point of contact. This person will get the information and disperse the information amongst the group,
Right.
which makes it very easier instead of a family member say the brother Jim calls and he speaks to the nurse Carrie, and then the sister Lacey calls and she speaks to the nurse Sharon, and then
Right.
information is discombobulated, as I might say.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so it's good to have that one line of
That one point of
communication.
contact. Yep.
One
And
point of
that's what
contact.
happened in that case. It was that one point of contact. So
And I
yeah.
think that it relieves everybody's stress, so that the
Mhm.
point of contact takes that position and is able to openly share all the information with everybody so everybody's
Yep.
all on board with what is happening as things are transitioning and changing.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's very good.
Yep.
It's very good. That's very good.
And it's less stressful too because, like you said, you don't have who do I talk to? Like one family member would may not know who to talk to, or
Mhm.
like you say, they talk to nurse Lisa, and somebody else talk to nurse Kimberly, or whatever. One person out all of the, shares all of the information. So
And that's
it
a
just
very
makes it better.
Yeah, and that's a very good piece for the families to understand how helpful and how better a situation like that is. And I know
Mhm.
sometimes some family members it's hard to figure out who that person is going to be.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they have that kind of thing going. One thing for me, I can just share working in a facility and having to speak to maybe five different children or five different friends and families that are involved with the care can be a
Mhm.
lot. You can forget which one did I talk to. I talked to
Right.
somebody earlier today.
Right.
I give
Exactly.
them that information, and then someone else is. Sometimes the families have expectations for the nursing staff. The nursing staff also has expectations of the family because the families, although your family member is the most important person, right? That's the most important
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
We can't forget that the nursing staff is responsible for other people also and other
Mhm.
family members. So
Mhm.
when everyone has a good understanding of each other and become a true team in the care, that patient
Mhm.
care or client or resident care and their experience in the family, the overall experience is so much better when
Mhm.
everybody is kind of on the same page.
Right, because then the staff will say, "Well, then I speak to you," or they may not share with you some information because maybe they thought they've already spoken to you about that. It says, "Well, no, you didn't tell me about that course of plan. That was my sister you talked to, or that was my brother you talked to, whatever." So yeah, it keeps, like you say, it keeps the confusion down
Yeah,
too.
and
So
it helps with the HIPAA situation. We want to protect the
yeah,
patients,
yeah,
clients, the residents, and
that's
make sure we're
true.
talking to the right person. And
Right,
so when somebody calls, if I've already talked to one sister, I have to go to the chart to
right,
see whose name is on the list to be spoken to.
right, exactly.
Because you want to protect your residents, your clients,
Right,
and your
exactly.
patients to make sure the
Because
information.
anybody can call. Anybody can say,
Yeah, and
um,
and that's happened.
yeah.
People are divorced from each other somewhat. Some people are
Mhm,
divorced from the
mhm,
family and whatnot and should not be getting
mhm,
information or,
Right.
somebody is in protective custody and things like that. So the nursing staff, people, sometimes become frustrated with the nursing staff when they have to stop and actually look and check, or they have to come
Right.
back and say, sorry, I'm not able to give you any information at this time. It can be frustrating for families. Um,
Right.
so, families having that list of who's the contact, who's the point of contact, and then having that person disperse the information, that is a great thing. It works so well
Yep.
on both sides, and it keeps the
Yep.
patient safe.
Yep. It does. Yep.
So I'm very
Absolutely.
glad that you brought that up. Very glad you brought that up.
Yep.
And so
Absolutely.
after the person is no longer at the facility, when you reflect back, when the family member reflects back, is this overall process that they dealt with this particular facility was a pleasant one, and they were satisfied with the care that was received?
Well, yes, the last facility, because there were several, to my
Okay.
understanding, um, maybe not several, maybe two.
Okay.
And one of them just wasn't good, wasn't meeting the need, wasn't listening, wasn't assuring that the person, the family member was going to be taken care of. And so the family had to remove their loved one. So yeah, so they had some negative experiences with another. And based on those negative experiences, they knew now what to look for with the new facility.
Yes.
We're going to make sure this one does this, that this is checked off, that they do this, that we have clear communication, that we have that one-on-one person. And so, based on that negative experience, they built that list
And that's a good
to,
thing. Mhm.
yeah, to
That's a
know,
very
because
good
if you don't know until you go through an experience. And then you know, you pick up some pointers there.
Yeah.
So,
And so that's one of the things that I do as a caring nurse is I help families get that list ahead of time. They would have had that
mhm,
list before going into facility, before making
mhm,
a decision to transition. Should I transition to long-term care versus
right,
assisted living? Should I go to a big facility versus a small assisted living group home? So
right.
I help with organizing the family, consulting the family so they can get the most for their loved one.
And
So
it also depends on the level of care
mhm,
of their loved one, because
exactly.
their loved one may have some skills that they could still do by themselves, brush their teeth, need some self-care and
Uh-huh.
things like that. And so you pick that facility where they can continue to do that. But
Exactly.
then there will be uh, care your loved ones who can't do anything, for themselves. So now you need to pick that facility to make sure that the staff is going to have somebody that's um, in addition to the medical knowledge, the personal care knowledge. I
Yes.
mean, not the personal care knowledge, but
For
the
personal
personal
care, they're
care
gonna take care of
aspect.
we call them ADLs, activities of daily living. We're gonna
Okay,
make
there
sure
you
that
go.
those things we're gonna make sure that those things are done. And that's another thing that I do with the family members is that I help the family members understand the language. So when you do go
Okay,
into a meeting or you do speak to somebody, when they say these things to you, well, we're doing their ADLs. Some family members may ask, and then some family members say, oh, okay, but not really understand what an ADL is. And
right.
so with my support, I kind of consult and educate the family so that they're aware of those terminologies and are able to
Hmm.
use them,
Now I
going
didn't
into
know the terminology, but I knew what I was
yeah.
getting
And so
at.
it's an empowering thing to have some more information and to go into a meeting when they say, well, we can no longer do occupational therapy. You're like, what is occupational therapy? You know, but you're absolutely right. I do want to just circle back to when you said when you're picking a facility, you want to pick a facility that is going to deliver the care that's necessary. And you want to pick a
Hmm.
facility that's going to allow a person to maintain their level. Because what you want is them to maintain whatever level they have for as long as possible.
Right,
Someone
exactly.
can feed themselves. You don't want somebody coming to a facility and people are feeding them, spooning them food in their mouth. Well,
Right, when they
now
can do it,
you're taking away from their
what they
productivity,
could do.
taking away their wherewithal, what they can do for themselves.
Yep.
And so that's a big thing. It's a big thing to just encourage somebody and let somebody take the
Hmm.
time to, brush their teeth if it takes a little bit longer, or to, comb their hair. And
Mhm.
so that's important to maintain. You don't want a facility that puts them in a wheelchair if they know how to
Right.
walk. Why are they
Right,
in wheelchairs if
exactly.
they're walking? If they stay in a wheelchair, they won't be able to walk. So
Right, exactly.
you're gonna make them worse than what they need, worse than what they are. So you
Mhm.
really want to keep them up. They always say
Right.
use it or lose it. And in my late 40s, I know I got to use it or I'm gonna lose it.
Especially, yeah, especially with the muscles, so,
Yes,
you can harm a person, like you said, if
yes,
you
you
just
can
letting
harm. You
them
can
sit
cause
there.
harm. Yes, and
Yeah,
the more you do,
pushing them up to the window, and then, there's no interaction, there's no allowing them to walk and use their own muscles and, their own skills and what have you, so it could be damaging.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could be pretty damaging to not allow
Mhm.
a person to do as much as their skill level has for them to do. So I'm glad that you brought it
Mhm.
up. It was a really, really good point. I'm glad we had that chance to make that point to the audience here tonight.
Mhm.
Um, so is there anything that you, as a friend, could give the audience, and something that you would say is like a major thing looking for a facility, or just some encouragement, or maybe just a like maybe give me three things you think is major for families to pay attention to. How about that? How about we do that?
I would say the friendliness of the staff. Well, first, I should put that as second. The level of skill, I would say, would be first, because you want to make sure that your nurses and your nurse staff, they're qualified,
Yes.
to take care of, and the medical knowledge. And second would be the friendliness, because you don't want someone coming into the room where your loved one is and having to change the sheets, or without coming in the room with a smile and just, good morning, how are you? Instead, the person just comes in straight to their work, changing the bed and lifting up the shades and, whatever. And it's just not that
Yeah.
personal interaction. So you do.
Yeah, we call it task oriented people. Some people are very task oriented. The only thing is important is the task. And it's
Right.
one thing that I always say, when I'm working somewhere or I'm managing or supervising, is I remind people we don't take care of furniture, we take care of people.
Just the
So
people,
either
right,
way, then you grab a chair any way you want to. Don't grab a person any way you want to.
right.
You need to have that good bedside manner, and when you go into a facility, watching the staff and seeing how they interact with the patients, residents, or clients, seeing them, talk to them,
Mhm.
you know, is always I always think it's a good idea to come to a facility in the middle of a meal for, for a tour. You get to
Right.
see how the meal service is going on. You get to see the meal being delivered to the patients. You get to
Yeah,
see patients being fed. You get to see
right.
what's on their plates. Um, I think mealtime is an awesome time to go into,
Mhm.
look at a facility to see what's happening. And you probably
Yeah,
catch them off guard, but
yeah.
that's okay. They're doing the right
Yeah,
thing all the
because
time,
you
and
do
it's
have a
fine.
lot of interaction with. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I'm
I
sorry, I
said,
cut you off.
you might catch them off guard, but that's okay because if they're doing the right thing every single time, they'll be doing the right thing. So it's
Right.
no anxiety to be felt by the staff.
And speaking, you're absolutely right with that. And speaking of off catching them off guard, I would I would advise a person that have to put their loved one into a care. Don't um don't be what's I'm looking come anytime, show up anytime.
Yeah,
Don't
you have
be
every right
a
to. You have
set
every right to.
time, right? Don't come at 3 o'clock every day. Show up in the morning, show up at mealtime. You know, show up in the evening or whatever. So they're not expecting when you are coming, because if they are, then they can clean up things. You want to catch them, like you say, at mealtime.
Yeah.
Sometimes mealtimes can be stressful, so you want to see.
Yep. So what you want to
So
do is you really want to do those spot checks. You want to come
right.
in and do spot checks. And it's not to really try to catch anybody. You're just making sure that things are happening the same way. The expectations are being met every single day, every single way.
Hmm.
And you're paying for a service and you should get what your expectations should be met,
Hmm.
you know?
Yep.
Well,
So in conclusion of my three, because I know I rambled around a little
no,
bit.
that's
So
fine.
I would say this: the skill set of the facility, the caring and friendliness and the cleanliness
Yeah.
of the facility is what I would, look. So,
Yeah,
and what I
because,
mean by the
it's such a
cleanliness, I mean the smell too. 'Cause sometimes
yeah.
you can walk in there like,
So yeah.
"Whew."
And the environment is an important piece. Is an important piece to a client sitting in a chair, sitting in a bed, eating their meals. You shouldn't smell certain odors. Certain odors and things should be taken care of
Mhm,
quickly. We know bacteria grows pretty quickly, so those things should be removed,
mhm,
taken care of quickly, out of sight, and they should be covered.
mhm.
And so, we like to thank you, Cherie, so much for taking time to
You're
be here,
welcome.
and we do appreciate you. Stay tuned for the
Thanks.
next caring nurse.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.